The skies over the jungle planet Grothar turned red as warships roared above the trees. The air burned. Fires crackled across the forest floor. Screams echoed between the shattered stone temples. No one knew who started the war. One moment, trade was calm between species. The next, blood soaked the roots of this ancient world. He wasn't supposed to be there. The human walked alone. His boots were scorched, his armor half melted from plasma fire. His name wasn't known to the stars. Just another supply engineer, left behind when his shuttle crashed in the chaos. He didn't carry a weapon. Only a small black case tied to his chest, filled with medical nanites he was trying to deliver before the airstrike hit. Now he was walking straight into the heart of something he didn't understand. The jungle grew silent as he entered the ruined court. Statues of old gods stared down with broken faces. Strange bones lay scattered on the ground, half buried in moss and blood. The heat pressed into his skin like a warning, but he kept walking. He didn't know that 100 eyes were watching him. He didn't know that death had already been ordered. High above, a figure sat on a throne made from the ribs of a dead beast. Her eyes were cold silver, her body draped in dark armor carved with ancient symbols. She was no queen. She was a warcaller, a daughter of the predator clans feared across 6 sectors. Her name was Sareth Vereen. She raised her hand slightly. At her feet, a creature uncurled. It was nearly twice the size of a man, its body long and low like a shadow, made of muscle and hunger. Its fangs dripped clear venom. Its tail thudded the stone floor. Born in black labs and raised on enemy blood, the predator was bred to obey only her. No hesitation, no mercy. She whispered without words. The beast leapt from the throne and vanished between the trees. The human reached a broken bridge. The temple ahead glowed with strange light. He paused only to sip from his canteen. That's when he felt it. A pressure, like the world itself had stopped breathing. Branches snapped behind him, heavy breathing. A low snarl. He turned. It stood, in front of him, massive, slashing claws, burning yellow eyes. Its mouth opened, ready to kill. His hands went up slowly. Not fear, just surprise. "I'm not here to fight," he said softly. The beast stepped closer. He didn't run. He didn't shout. He did the one thing no one else had ever tried. He knelt. He untied his canteen and pushed it across the dirt toward the creature. It paused. Head tilted. The liquid caught the reflection of the firelight. It sniffed. Then licked. Then walked forward. The human sat still as the predator leaned close. Its tongue touched his boot. Once. Twice. Then it pressed its face against his leg, breathing in the dust of him. High above, the warcaller stood frozen. Her soldiers whispered, confused. This had never happened before. She had ordered the kill. Her voice had been clear, but the predator was nuzzling him now. Its tail swayed lazily like a happy child. The human reached out slowly. He touched its head. A low purr rumbled from the beast's chest. No words were spoken. But something shifted in that moment. The hunter had recognized something ancient. Something buried deep in its code. The warmth of kindness. The scent of peace. The sound of a heartbeat that did not fear. And Sareth Vereen, who had never been disobeyed in her life, now stared at the one creature she trusted most as it ignored her command. The human stood slowly, eyes meeting hers from across the ruins. Neither of them spoke, but both knew something strange had just begun. The soldiers around Sareth shifted uncomfortably. None dared speak. Their war caller stood still, her eyes locked on the scene below. The predator, her most loyal weapon, stood calmly beside the human. It didn't growl. It didn't pounce. It sat down like a guard watching over its own master. This was impossible. She had raised that beast from a pup. It had killed for her, died for her, torn through steel for her. but now it had chosen a stranger. A man without armor, without weapons. A human. The species she hated most. She stepped down from the throne, her boots heavy against the cracked stone, her cape dragged behind her like smoke. The guards watched in silence as she walked to the edge of the temple and stared down at the human. He didn't bow, he didn't flinch. He raised a hand in greeting. Sereth's eyes narrowed. Her voice rang out across the ruins, sharp and full of venom. What spell have you cast on my beast? The human glanced at the predator beside him, then back at her. No spell, he said. I offered water. I showed peace. The soldiers hissed. One of them raised a rifle, but Sereth held up a hand. She wanted to see more. You should be dead, she said. That creature has ripped through armies. Maybe it was just thirsty, he replied. Sereth's jaw tightened. No one had ever dared joke in her presence. Not and lived. She began descending the steps toward him. Her presence was like a storm. Cold wind seemed to follow her. Even the predator looked up as she approached. You are human, she said, stopping a few feet away. You are the reason my sister burns in a cryo chamber, the reason my home was poisoned. Why should I not kill you myself? The man didn't argue. He didn't plead. He opened the black case strapped to his chest. Inside were rows of small vials. One of them glowed blue. Medical nanites, genetically neutral, designed to save any life, any bloodline, even hers. I came here to deliver this, he said. Before the strike hit, I was trying to get this to a field camp. I don't know whose side started it, I just know lives needed saving. Sereth stared at the case. She could smell truth in his words, but her rage clawed at her chest. You think one act of mercy erases what your kind has done? No, he said softly, but it's a start. The wind shifted. The predator moved between them, gently nudging Sereth's arm with its snout. Her eyes widened. The beast was trying to calm her. It had never done that before. She looked into its eyes, then back at the human. I should kill you, she whispered. But you didn't, he said. Silence stretched between them. In the trees, hidden scouts watched. They would report this. The war caller speaking to a human, not just speaking, listening. She turned away. Follow me. He didn't move at first. Why? You're under my protection now, she said, until I figure out what you really are. The predator trotted ahead like a happy pet. The human followed. They walked together through the ruins, down stone paths lit by glowing vines, past broken walls where ancient stories were still etched in forgotten language. Inside the temple, Sereth paused at a glowing pillar. She placed her hand on it and a door slid open. Behind the door was a figure floating in stasis, a girl with pale skin and faint marks on her arms, wires wrapped around her chest, her eyes closed, her breath barely visible. My sister, Sereth said. The human stepped closer, the case still in his hands. I can try. Sereth said nothing. But for the first time, her voice did not carry hate. Then save her. The human opened his case carefully. He didn't rush. One wrong move could trigger the nanites early. He picked the vial marked for deep repair. It was designed for nervous damage, tissue death, and cell recovery. The blue glow inside the vial pulsed slowly like a heartbeat. Sereth stood behind him, her arms crossed, but her face unreadable. She had trusted no outsider in her life, not even her own allies. And now a human of all things was about to touch her sister's body. The predator sat silently beside the stasis chamber, watching every movement. Will she feel pain? Sereth asked, her voice quieter now. Maybe, the human replied, but it means the nanites are working. He inserted the vial into the chamber's injection port. The hiss of the seal opening echoed in the still air. The nanites poured in as a soft mist, then disappeared into the girl's skin. The blue lights around the chamber flickered, then turned green. Sereth leaned forward slightly. The girl's body twitched. Not much, just a finger at first, then a sharp breath. Then her eyes opened. Her chest rose fast as if she had been underwater for years. She looked around wildly. Her mouth opened, trying to speak. Her fingers clawed at the wires around her. Sareth stepped forward and placed her hand gently on her sister's forehead. "You're safe," she whispered. "I'm here." The girl blinked, confused. Then her eyes landed on the human. She flinched. Sareth saw it and turned to him quickly. "She doesn't trust you." "I wouldn't either," he said. Still, he took a slow step back and lowered his head, showing no threat. The girl watched him carefully, then looked at the predator. The creature gave a soft growl, almost like a greeting. The girl's shoulders relaxed a little. Sareth glanced between them. "You did it," she said. "You brought her back." "I helped," the human replied. "Her body did the rest." "You don't ask for a reward?" "No. Not even your freedom?" "I wasn't a prisoner," he said. "I walked in." Sareth looked down at her hands, then at her sister. The girl was sitting up now, her voice still quiet but her body gaining strength. "She says you smell like rain," Sareth said suddenly. The human raised an eyebrow. "She's sensitive to energy," Sareth explained. "She can feel emotion, even intent. If you were lying, she'd know." He didn't reply. For a moment, the room fell into strange silence. A war caller, a wounded girl, a predator, and a lone human who had walked into death only to give life. Sareth turned away from the chamber and waved her hand. A side door opened with a hiss. Inside was a long hall filled with floating data screens, maps of battlefields, lists of targets. She motioned him to follow. He did. "This is my command center," she said. "Everything the Predator clan's plan is stored here." The human looked around slowly. "You show me this." "I'm trying to understand," she said. "Why you?" He faced her. "Why me what? Why would the beast choose you? It doesn't respond to kindness, it doesn't understand peace, it was born to destroy." He thought for a moment. "I didn't treat it like a weapon. I saw it as alive." Sareth stared at him. "No one ever looked at it that way," she said quietly. "Not even me." Behind them, the predator walked in and sat beside the human again, its glowing eyes soft. Sareth reached toward one of the screens. A file opened. It showed footage from orbit. A new fleet was entering the system, bigger, stronger, from neither her side nor the humans. Unknown symbols. Strange design. No broadcast signal. She turned to the human. "This wasn't supposed to happen. You may not be our only visitor." He stepped closer. "Who are they?" Sareth didn't answer right away, but her voice carried weight. Something worse than war. The human stared at the display. The ships in orbit were large and slow-moving, but their design was alien to both him and Sareth. Not sleek like warships, not bulky like cargo freighters. Their surfaces were smooth and featureless, as if they were grown instead of built. No markings, no lights, just silent giants drifting above the planet. "How long have they been here?" he asked. 2 hours, Sareth replied. "They didn't respond to any signals. No threats, no warnings, no language. Could be probes. Probes don't cloak themselves before scanning planetary cores." He understood what that meant. These visitors weren't curious explorers. They were studying weaknesses. Energy, flow, defense systems, ground life. Preparing for something. The predator made a low growling sound. It faced the screen and growled again, longer this time. Sareth noticed. "It senses something," she said. "It never does that for starships." The human nodded slowly. "What happens when they come down?" Sareth turned to him. "They won't just land. They'll take." He looked at the map. His mind worked fast. If these ships weren't from either side of the current war, then they were third-party invaders, opportunists, or worse, exterminators. "You have enemies," he said. "But this isn't about your war anymore. It's about survival." Sareth gave a quiet nod. For once, she didn't look like a war caller. She looked like a leader with too much weight on her shoulders. Her sister appeared at the doorway, leaning weakly against the frame. The predator moved to her side immediately, nuzzling her gently. She smiled and touched its head. Sareth's voice lowered. "I kept her alive in stasis for 5 years. Every time she opened her eyes, she screamed, "Until today." The human said nothing, he just listened. Sareth turned back to him. "I don't know why you were spared. I don't know why you helped us. But if those ships land, we will all burn." "No. And yet you stay?" He looked at her, calm and steady. "Running doesn't work if there's nowhere left to run." Sareth studied him again. The way he stood. No armor, no rank, no arrogance, just a calm, strange man with sharp eyes and steady hands. Her predator had chosen him. Her sister had trusted him. And now the sky held death neither of them could fight alone. "I want to show you something," she said. They walked together, down a long spiral hall lit by glowing stones. At the end was a wide chamber sealed by bone locks. She pressed her hand into the wall. The door opened with a hiss. Inside was a chamber unlike the others. The walls were filled with carvings. Not of war, but of creatures, ships and ancient beings with strange heads and long arms. "These were the first enemies we ever faced," she said. "Long before humans were known to the stars." He stepped closer. The carvings showed creatures similar to the new ships above. The same smooth design, the same hollow faces. "They came once before?" "Yes," she said. "They wiped out entire moons. They don't speak. They don't trade. They simply erase." The human looked back at her. "And your people survived?" "Barely. We fought them off using beasts stronger than thought possible." She pointed at one carving. A large creature stood beside a warrior. The beast's mouth wide, its eyes burning. It looked like the predator standing next to them now. "They were made for this," Sareth said. The predator stared at the carving, as if it remembered. "And now?" the human asked. Sareth looked at him carefully. "You may be the only one it obeys. If we are to survive this, I'll need you to stay close." He didn't answer immediately. Then he nodded. "Then we prepare." And in that quiet chamber filled with old warnings, the warcaller and the human stood side by side, no longer enemies, but something unexpected. The temple turned into a war camp by nightfall. Ancient halls once used for prayers now echoed with footsteps of soldiers and technicians. Lights flickered across the vines. Drones hovered above the stone paths. The jungle itself seemed to sense the change. The air turned heavier, tighter. Sareth stood in the middle of it all, barking quiet orders in her native tongue. Her warriors moved fast, trained for war, but none of them had ever fought an enemy that didn't talk or bleed. The human worked beside them. He didn't act like a leader, but everyone watched him. Even without trying, he had become part of the plan. He used the temple's med systems to patch wounded soldiers. He linked human tech into the predator's old implants. He didn't ask for permission. He just did what needed to be done. Sareth noticed. She watched him from the upper deck. Her sister sat beside her, still weak but alert. The young girl had stopped shaking ever since the human arrived. "You think he's strange," the girl said. "He is, but not in a bad way." Sareth didn't answer. Her eyes followed him as he knelt beside the predator, adjusting a small collar on its neck. The beast didn't resist. It stayed still, loyal. The girl smiled faintly. "He's not afraid." "No," Sareth said. "He's not." Suddenly a loud tone echoed through the temple walls. A warning signal. One of the scouts ran into the hall, panting hard. "They're coming down." Sareth was already moving. "How many?" "2 ships, landing, to the north ridge." Silent. No sound, no heat. They just dropped straight through atmosphere. The human appeared beside her, face calm but focused. "2? For now," the scout said. Sareth gave a nod. "We move to intercept. Quiet. Fast." She turned to the human. "You come with me." They moved out with a small unit, including the predator. It walked close to the human's side, eyes scanning the trees. Night had fallen, but the jungle glowed with soft blue lights from insects and strange flowers. The air pulsed with the tension of something unnatural. They reached the ridge within minutes, and there they saw it. The 2 ships stood like tombstones. Tall, silent, no windows, no weapons visible. Just black metal rising from the earth. Not a single sound came from them. No crew, no lights, no life. Sareth motioned her squad to spread out. The human stepped closer, studying the surface. He reached out and touched it. Cold. Too cold. Not metal, not stone. Something else. Suddenly, a ripple moved across the surface. It reacted to him. A thin slit opened. A shape began to crawl out. Sareth raised her blade, ready to strike. But the human held up his hand. Wait. The shape stepped into the open. It was humanoid, but wrong. Its face was blank, like smooth clay. Its arms too long. No mouth. No eyes. Only small holes on each side of its head. Its body was covered in a membrane that shimmered like wet glass. It didn't speak. It didn't attack. It just looked at him, or rather, it faced him. The predator snarled. The creature turned toward it and froze. Then it backed away slowly, returning to the ship. The human turned to Sareth. It's scanning us, reading us, testing reactions. Sareth nodded grimly. This was just a scout. As if confirming her words, the second ship opened. But nothing came out. Instead, the ground began to shake. Roots snapped. Trees bent backward. The soil near the second ship cracked open. Something was coming up from underneath. A shape larger than any beast in the jungle. Sareth raised her blade again. The human stepped beside her. We don't have time to run. I wasn't planning to. And as the ground split wider and the stars vanished behind a rising wall of shadows, the predator leaned forward and growled. Not in fear, but in hunger. The earth cracked open wider as the thing underneath pushed through. The jungle trembled. Trees fell like sticks. Birds and beasts scattered in all directions, fleeing the unnatural presence rising from the ground. Sareth's troops tightened their grip on weapons. The predator stood still, eyes glowing, body tense. The human didn't move. His face stayed calm, but his eyes watched everything. Then it rose. A towering figure nearly 10 meters tall. It looked like a mixture of creature and machine. Its arms were too long, bent backward like they weren't made for holding tools, but for slicing through walls. Its body was wrapped in layers of smooth armor, each plate pulsing with a faint green light. No face, just a single slit across the head where red light flickered like a heartbeat. It didn't roar. It didn't growl. It simply stepped forward. Sareth gave the signal. Her soldiers opened fire. Plasma bolts lit up the dark ridge. The creature didn't stop. The blasts hit its armor but slid off like water on stone. It walked forward slowly, absorbing every hit. The human turned to the predator. Go. The beast exploded into motion. It leapt from the ridge with terrifying speed, jaws wide, claws sharp. It slammed into the creature's chest, pushing it back. The impact shook the ground. For a second, the monster stumbled. Then it struck back. Its arm whipped around like a hammer. It hit the predator in the side and sent it flying into the trees. Branches snapped. Dust rose. The human ran toward it without thinking. Sareth shouted his name, but he didn't stop. He reached the beast just as it was standing back up. Blood leaked from its side, but its eyes were still sharp. You're not done, he said. The predator growled low, like it understood. It stood up, pain in every movement, but still ready. The large creature stepped toward them again. This time faster. The human looked at Sareth. Keep shooting. Aim at the joints. She didn't argue. She ordered her troops to focus fire on the monster's knees and elbows. It worked. The plasma bolts chipped away at the thinner armor on its joints. Sparks flew. The beast slowed. Its movements turned jerky. The predator took the chance and launched again, this time aiming for the back of its leg. Its claws sank in deep. The large creature collapsed on one knee. That's when the human ran forward. He reached into his belt and pulled out one of the emergency nanite injectors. Not for healing this time, but to overload. He twisted the cap and slammed it into the exposed joint, right where the plasma had broken the surface. The nanites surged inside. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the monster convulsed. Its body twitched violently. The green lights across its armor turned white, then blinked out. The red slit on its head began to flicker. It swayed once, then dropped like a broken tower. Silence fell across the ridge. Sareth lowered her blade. Her soldiers looked stunned. The human knelt beside the predator, checking its side. Blood still leaked from the wound, but the breathing was steady. He looked up at Sareth. "We need a medical pod. Now." She gave the order. A dropship landed 10 minutes later. The predator was lifted gently into a stasis pod, surrounded by biogel. The human stayed beside it, wiping blood from its fur with pieces of cloth. Sareth stood beside him, quiet. "You saved all of us," she said. "It's not over," he replied. "That was just one. And they watched everything." She followed, his gaze upward. The sky was filled with more of the black ships now, 5, maybe more. Still silent, still watching. Sareth clenched her fist. "They're testing us, sending monsters to measure our strength, and learning fast." She nodded. "Then we need to strike first." The human looked at her with sharp eyes. "Then we need to do it together." For the first time, Sareth didn't see a human. She saw an equal, and far above them, the enemy began to move again. The temple had changed again. Where there were once ruins and dust, now there were weapons stacked in corners, maps projected on stone walls, and new faces walking the halls. Sareth had called in her elite squads. Silent killers, born in the ice jungles of Gura. Some wore no armor. Some didn't speak, but they all bowed to her when she passed. The human moved through the chaos like he belonged. No rank, no badge, but when he spoke, others listened. He carried data from the last fight, images of weak points, samples of broken armor, heat traces from the giant creature's body. His mind didn't rest. He knew more were coming. Stronger ones. Smarter ones. The predator floated inside a recovery tank, breathing slow. Its wounds had closed, but its body still shook sometimes. Sareth visited it often, sometimes in silence, sometimes with her sister. They never said much, but the beast would stir when they came near. One night, Sareth found the human sitting beside the tank staring at the creature. "You care for it," she said. He didn't turn. "I respect it. It was made to kill your kind. I wasn't kind to it, I was just kind." Sareth stepped closer, arms crossed. "You confuse me." He finally looked at her. "You're not the first one." She didn't smile, but her voice softened. "We've been trained to fear humans, told your blood burns, your worlds poison the air. But you saved my sister. You saved my beast. And now you stay. Because I know what happens if I don't." Sareth nodded slowly, then activated her wristband. A small projector floated between them, showing a map of the system. "They've landed on 2 more moons. Same pattern. Dig, scan, send monsters. No words, no warning." "They don't want territory," the human said. "They want silence. They want emptiness." "Yes, and we won't give it to them." He studied the map. "You have a plan?" "We strike the command node, the central ship. It controls the others. Cut off the head, the body falls." "It won't be easy. Nothing worth doing ever is." She looked at him. "Will you lead it with me?" The question hung in the air. Not just about war, but about trust. He nodded. "I will." Sareth turned to leave, but paused. "You will need something more than words and science." She reached into a metal crate nearby and pulled out a strange object. A blade, shaped like a fang, but alive. It pulsed faintly with blue light. "This is made from the predator's kind. Bio-linked. It will only respond to someone it accepts." The human took it carefully. The blade shifted in his hand, reshaping to fit his grip. "It knows you," Sareth said. He looked at it. It felt warm, like it was breathing. "I'll use it well." Hours later, in the deep core of the temple, the predator stirred. Its eyes opened slowly. It rose from the tank without noise. Guards stepped back. Healers froze. But it ignored them all. It walked straight out of the chamber, past the lights, past the guards, until it stood in the central hall. And there it found him. The human turned and smiled. Ready? The beast lowered its head, not as a servant, but as a companion. Sareth stepped out from the shadows, dressed for war. Her armor was no longer ceremonial. It was built for battle. Her sister stood beside her holding a staff of light, something ancient and powerful. The temple gates opened. Dawn broke across the jungle, and for the first time, predator, human, and warcaller stood as one. The final strike had begun. The dropship cut through the sky like a blade. Its engines made no sound, cloaked in silence, tech stolen from old wars. Inside, the team prepared for the strike. Sareth stood at the front, her eyes locked on the horizon. Beside her, the human adjusted his gear, the living blade strapped to his back. The predator crouched near his feet, silent and focused. No one spoke. The ship reached orbit. Far below, the jungle planet disappeared behind a cloud of ash. Above them, the enemy ship waited. It didn't move. It didn't flash weapons. Just floated there like a dark moon. The dropship pierced its outer shell without resistance. No guns fired. No shields flared. It was like falling into the mouth of a sleeping beast. They landed in a chamber so quiet it felt wrong. The walls curved and pulsed, as if alive. No machines. No control panels. Just smooth black material that absorbed light. This isn't metal, the human said. It's organic. Sareth nodded. Living ship. Grown, not built. They moved forward, weapons ready. The ship responded. A low hum filled the air. The walls rippled like skin. And then they came. Shapes crawled from the darkness. The same long arms. The same eyeless faces. But these were faster, smarter. They moved together like they shared one mind. Sareth shouted the first command. Blades flashed. The predator leapt forward, slamming into the nearest creature, teeth sinking deep. Sareth's soldiers formed a tight wall, fighting in rhythm. The human moved through them like water, the living blade in his hand glowing with each strike. The enemy didn't bleed. When cut, they turned to ash. But more came. They don't stop, one soldier shouted. They will, the human said. We're close. He could feel it, a pull, not from the ship but from the blade. It guided him. He ran ahead, the predator beside him. Sareth followed, shouting for her soldiers to cover the path. They reached a massive door, round and pulsing. The blade in the human's hand began to glow white. He raised it and stabbed the center of the door. A blinding light exploded around them. When it cleared, they were inside the core. It wasn't a room, it was a heart. The walls were clear now, showing a massive brain-like structure floating in green fluid. Wires pulsed from it into the ship's veins. In the center, a single tall figure stood, taller than the others, covered in layers of thin armor that moved like liquid. It didn't attack. It spoke. Not in sound, but inside their heads. You were not chosen. Sareth winced. The human stepped forward. We choose ourselves. The tall figure raised its hand. The brain pulsed behind it. The ship began to shake. I'll hold it, Sareth said, stepping in front. But the predator moved first. It leapt, between them and the enemy, roaring louder than ever before. The figure struck it midair. The predator crashed to the ground, unmoving. The human shouted its name and ran to its side. Its body was still breathing, but barely. He stood up slowly. His eyes burned with something different now. Rage. He walked toward the tall figure. The living blade in his hand burned bright. The figure raised its arm again, but this time, the human was faster. He slid under the strike and drove the blade through its chest. The figure froze. The lights across the walls blinked. The brain behind the chamber convulsed. Then everything went still. The tall figure crumbled to ash, and the ship began to collapse. Sareth grabbed her sister and pulled her back. The human knelt beside the predator again and whispered something. No, One heard, then he lifted it onto his back. The ship's walls cracked, voices screamed without mouths. But the path behind them reopened. They ran. They didn't stop. And when the dropship door closed behind them, the black giant above the world finally fell. The skies over Grothar were quiet again. Where once the enemy ship hovered like a black moon, now there was nothing. Just smoke trails falling across the atmosphere and debris flickering like dying stars. In the jungle temple, celebrations had already started. Soldiers lit ceremonial fires. Children who had hidden underground were lifted into the sun again. Even the elders came out from the stone chambers and whispered thanks in their old tongue. But Sareth didn't celebrate. She stood beside the recovery pod, her hand resting on the thick glass. Inside, the predator lay still. Its body was broken, in 3 places. Ribs crushed, spine bruised. But it was alive, breathing, and healing. She looked across the room. The human stood alone near the edge of the platform, watching the sky. His body was cut, his armor cracked, but his face was calm, as if none of the pain mattered. Sareth approached him. "You haven't rested. Neither have you." She stood beside him in silence for a moment. "You carried it out. You carried my beast on your back." He nodded. "It would have done the same." She looked at him. "It's not just an animal anymore, is it?" He didn't answer, but they both knew the truth. It had chosen him, and maybe so had she. From behind them, her sister appeared, walking slowly without support. Her healing had progressed faster than expected. She moved like someone waking from a long dream. "I felt something in the core," she said softly. "Before it died." Sareth turned. "What did you feel?" "Fear, but not from it. From something else." The human looked at her. "Another ship?" She shook her head. "Something deeper, beneath the surface. Like it wasn't the leader. Just a voice." Sareth frowned. "The real mind is still out there?" The girl nodded. "And it knows what you did." Outside, the temple lights dimmed for a moment, then flickered back on. A tech rushed into the hall, breathless. "High energy signature. Detected. Far side of the planet. Something's waking up underground." Sareth and the human exchanged a look. "It's not over," he said. "No," she replied. "It was never over." They moved quickly to the war room. New scans were already running. Deep below the surface, under the old crust, something had begun to move. Not a ship, not a base. Something living. Massive. Buried hive, Sareth guessed. A sleeping part of their swarm. The human studied the scan. The movement was slow but steady. "If it wakes up fully, it won't stop," she said. "It'll call more of them." He looked at her. "Then we stop it first." Her jaw tightened. "My soldiers are tired. We lost too many already." "You're not alone," he said. Her eyes softened for just a second. "No, not anymore." She activated her comms. "Send word to the allied clans, to the human outposts. We dig before it climbs." He added one more thing. "And I go down first." Sareth turned sharply. "No, you've done enough." "I haven't." She stared at him. "Why do you keep risking yourself?" He looked at her quietly. "Because someone has to." Outside, thunder rolled through the trees, but there were no clouds, just the sound of something ancient stirring far below. The predator shifted inside the pod, one eye opening slightly, as if it too could feel the storm coming. The tunnels below Grothar were ancient, older than war, older than language, carved by something not made for walking or crawling, just moving, endlessly, like rivers through stone. Now those tunnels shook again. The human dropped into the darkness first. His armor was repaired, the living blade strapped to his back. It pulsed gently, as if it knew where it was going. Sareth followed close behind, her armor now marked with both her clan symbol and the human flag side by side. Behind them came the predator, healed, but changed. Its movement was slower, but its eyes were brighter, as if it had returned with more than just scars. As if something inside it had awakened. They descended deeper than any scanner had reached. The walls grew warmer. The air turned heavy. Sareth's sister stayed above, guiding them through uplinks. Her voice kept them connected. "You're near the center," she said softly through the comm. "It's moving." They reached a vast cavern and stopped. There, rising from the ground like a buried heart, was the source. It wasn't a machine. It was alive. A massive, fleshy structure, wrapped in black coils. It throbbed gently, like it was dreaming. Hundreds of empty eyes stared from its surface. It didn't speak. It just breathed. Each breath echoed like thunder. The human stepped forward. "This is it," he said. Sareth watched the structure with a clenched jaw. This is what controls the swarm." "No," the human said. "It is the swarm." Suddenly, the ground pulsed. A wave of pressure slammed into them. The walls bent inward. The cavern groaned. And it spoke, not in words, in pressure, in pain, in memories that weren't theirs. They saw flashes of other worlds, other deaths, billions consumed, not for conquest but for silence, for erasure. The predator growled and stepped forward. The human looked down at the blade. It had turned black. "I can't use it," he said. Sareth stared at him. "Why?" "It doesn't want me to." The predator turned to them. Then, slowly, it walked ahead. It stopped at the edge of the pit where the creature's brain pulsed and looked back at the human. He stepped forward, understanding what it meant. "No. You don't have to do this." The predator made no sound. It just touched its head to his chest, then leapt into the pit. The blade in the human's hand flared with blinding light. White, pure, alive. It flew from his hand into the air, spinning. Then it struck, straight into the heart of the living core. The explosion wasn't loud. It was silent. A pulse of pure white light spread outward, washing over the walls, the tunnel, the entire mountain. Above, the skies turned bright. Every black ship still in orbit cracked like glass. The swarm collapsed. Every monster, every crawler, every shadow gone. In the pit, the light faded. The structure was dust now. But there was no movement. The predator was gone. The human stepped toward the edge. His voice cracked. "You didn't have to." Sareth touched his shoulder. It chose. He knelt beside the edge. He stayed there for a long time. No one disturbed him. Back at the temple, people gathered. Songs were sung not in celebration, but in memory. The predator was given a name in their language, one that meant shield of two worlds. Sareth stood beside the human as her sister spoke the final words. And when it was over, she turned to him. "You could leave now," she said. "They'll sing about you either way." He looked at her. "I'm not here for songs," she nodded, her voice low. "Then stay." He did, and far beyond the stars, where other creatures watched and waited, a new message was carved into the wind. Some worlds may fall, but not this one. Not when a beast licked the boot of a man and chose peace instead of blood.